Alright, what's going on? Got another replay from Total War Warhammer 3, playing Domination 1-on-1 on the Grove of Slaughter map. And this time I'm changing it up. I started playing as Kislev a little bit, as opposed to the Ogre Kingdoms. And when I was going into this matchup, what I was thinking was if he's playing as Dwarves, he's probably going to have just a lot of armored units and a lot of slow infantry. And if there were flying units or cannons, they'd probably be somewhat vulnerable to some units with speed. So, and I should more so say that the cannons would be vulnerable to units with speed, and that the flying units would be vulnerable to missile units. So, what I've got here is I've got an Ice Witch of Tempest, and the only spell I brought on her was the Biting Wind, because I figured that a wind spell would be good versus the slow dwarven troops. They wouldn't be able to dodge easily. I brought two Patriarchs, each with different spell, or different, what do you call them? The augments that they get. So I'm not going to go through all the names, but I'll just quickly show them here. This guy's got a heal and a melee attack. The other guy's got leadership charge and vigor per second. I actually don't know if that just slows down the pace at which they lose their stamina or whatever. So I've also got a squad of Zargard. I've got two squads of Streltsy, two squads of armored Kossars with great weapons, and some Kossite dervishes. And basically what I was thinking was that I would have these three bear-mounted units traveling together. Both Patriarchs and my Ice Witch are mounted on bears. That gives them armor-piercing damage. It does make them all large, so I gotta watch out for slayers and things like that. But that was generally what I was going for. And then I figured Streltsy are armor-piercing, armored Kossars with great weapons are armor-piercing, Zargard are ground-holding, and they've got shields to protect them from range fire. My opponent has Thorek Ironbrow. And he has, let's see, we've got hammers, iron breakers, more hammers, more iron breakers, and more iron breakers. So 3 squads of iron breakers, 2 of hammers, and a squad Thorek Ironbrow coming up the middle. And then off to this side they've got dwarf warriors and dwarf warriors with great weapons. And let's see, it looks like they've got some troops over here as well. More dwarf warriors with great weapons, and that is it for now. So put on normal speed. So my main focus to start was grabbing this side objective, getting my large units and my Zargard in the middle. And part of that was I was thinking, okay, if I fight for points 1 and 2, I can put my range fire to better use out here, so I have my Streltsy out in this open field area, and then have my large units who are more susceptible to range fire fighting in the wooded area on point 2 with the Zargard in support. So I wanted to get some capture weight on here, but not commit to any engagements, because I saw the hammer units and I figured they would probably deal with my Zargard. And he's going mostly all of his troops to point 2. He's got a couple. Looks like he brought in some more. There's another group of dwarf warriors, or he brought in miners with blasting charges over here. Moving on point 3, and miners with blasting charges on this side as well. So when I saw his troops moving out, the iron breakers kind of caught my attention, because I figured a lot of my troops are tightly knit infantry, and if they get shots off, they're going to do a lot of damage. So I wanted to try to pick them off with my Streltsy. So I moved some of my armored Kossars just to give line of sight, and then I moved my Streltsy up to start shooting at these guys. At this point, I did not know he had troops in the woods. I figured that he might, so I was kind of being cautious with my troop placement. I also know that there's a little bit of a mound here, a little bit of a hill here, so sometimes you can't see over the other side. But getting shots off onto the iron breakers on this flank. I got my little goon squad of bears charging in here and attacking these iron breakers. I didn't want them to start getting blasting charges off, or whatever their... I guess they don't have blasting charges. What do they have? armor piercing? Maybe they are. Maybe they are blasting charges. Again, I don't know all the faction rosters too well. I brought in some cost fight dervishes. I figured I would sit them on this point, and then if they ever got threatened, I could just run away. They don't have any troops that are fast enough to catch that. Throwing down my wind spell. What is this called again? Biting Wind. Did decent damage on these guys. He used some kind of rune that gave them a ton of armor when they're both in steel, so that's going to help them. He's got Thorek Ironbrow coming in here. And throughout this match, one thing I was intending on being conscious of was making sure that my Ice Witch didn't get picked off. Although she's on a bear, so she's a decent melee combatant, I figured she would kind of get smashed by their lord. You can see I brought in a squad of armored cossars with great weapons to support. I had brought them in as reinforcements, brought them around this side. And my Zargard are sitting back for now, not going in to get two in the mix. And they just got some shots off and did a big chunk of damage to my Ice Witch, but my Patriarchs are doing pretty good damage with her on the hammers and whatnot. And then here I didn't want their Ironbreakers to get free reign, so I charged them with my Zargard, charged them with my armored Cossars. At this point I figured that the bear group was going to need some support, so although I could keep shooting with these armored Cossars with their pistols, I figured I'd run them in. And then I also felt that I had decent control over this flank, so I would bring some of my Streltsy and armored Cossars to support. I would leave one group of armored Cossars with Streltsy over on this side, and then I would also leave some Cost Fight Dervishes out there as well. Another Biting Wind coming down. You can see that there's a blob of infantry here, Ironbreakers, more Ironbreakers, and Hammerers. And I might have just missed it actually, seeing the cast itself. Over here, I noticed that the Dwarf Warriors were starting to progress and go at my Cost Fight Dervishes to push them off. He's still hiding guys in the woods here. Honestly, these troops are probably better served out moving. I'm not sure if he was waiting to see if I was going to try to spring on that with more than just dervishes and then he was going to catch me. But that's all I had over there. I usually tend to just focus on 2 points in this game unless I'm really crushing my opponent in the value trading. But you can see I'm pretty far behind in the value trading. I'm actually almost getting doubled up. And I'm not entirely sure what that is. I guess some of that is big damage getting put on my Patriarch and my Ice Witch. And you can see one of them is on the verge of dying, but I did use the Saliak's Lullaby for the health regeneration. So that thing has three charges that you can use throughout the battle. You can see I've got a pretty good amount of troops in here. I got Ice Guard with swords. I brought them because they have their ranged attack, but they're also anti-melee, or not anti-melee, anti-infantry. There are two different variants of them. I think one is swords and one is blades, but the sword variant is anti-infantry, so I figured they would be best against the dwarves. I was aiming to be careful with them as far as when I was letting them get vulnerable to units with blasting charges. Thorek Ironbrow is chasing off some armored Cossars over here. I'm not sure if he was trying to keep them away from my Patriarchs and my Ice Witch, but I've got some Streltsy in support just shooting in this area. Again, having the ranged units over here is not super efficient, but just because of all the tree cover and whatnot, but I figured I'd leave them back and support, and then if they needed, they could run in and fight in melee combat. Over on this side, I brought in some heavy war sleds. I've got a group of armored Cossars still firing in, defending this. I moved my Streltsy up because they were starting to get troops that would be able to get on the point. And war sleds are something that I am just starting to get used to. Chariot units, I've honestly never been that good at using, and that's part of the reason I brought them in here. I brought heavy war sleds because I was thinking that the dwarves might have a decent amount. Got another wind spell coming down. It looks like he tried to dodge that and did an okay job, but again, the dwarfs are slow. But back to my point about the war sleds. I brought heavy war sleds because I figure the dwarves usually have pretty good shooting, but they have a lot of slow infantry, so being able to run them down with those war sleds could be pretty useful. And because I know that I'm not good at using chariot units, I wanted to put them to use and try to be conscious of how I was using them. So not just charging in, but making sure that I was being attentive to when I commit to a charge, starting to double click and issue repetitive move commands for them to travel through the units that they charge. So this is one thing that I feel like I'd heard this on some other channel. I don't know if it was Zerkovic, whatever, however you pronounce this guy's name, or it might have been Turin. They were saying that when you use chariot units, you don't want to just issue an attack command and then leave them be. You want to issue attack command. Once the charge lands, you keep them moving through, because they don't do well when they sit and fight in a blob. You have to keep them getting that charge damage off, and otherwise they're not super efficient. Anyways, my Patriarchs are getting pretty beat up here, but they're still doing pretty good. They're dealing a decent amount of damage, fighting Ironbreakers. Ironbreakers aren't amazing in melee, at least as far as damage output. Part of that is that they're debuffed. I'm not sure what's taking. Okay, yeah, it's from my Ice Queen. She's got some kind of ability that does a debuff on their melee attack, and I believe their leadership as well. Ice Guard with swords are in there doing pretty good damage. I got Streltsy on the side for flanking shots. Cosified Dervishes chasing off those hammerers. I was looking to use my Cosified Dervishes somewhat on the back field and trying to avoid using them in direct combat, especially in this wooded area, because I believe large units don't do well in rough terrain, or at least in forest areas. At some point, I issued some attack commands from my Streltsy to shoot down these gyrocopters, because I was worried that they were going to be doing a lot of damage either to my Patriarchs, to my Lord, or just my infantry in general. They have the brimstone gun, so I forget. Okay, yeah, they do have the bombing run ability. So my Lord is pretty beat up, but I've got war sleds over on this side. I was aiming to use my heavy war sleds all up and down this channel. I was thinking I was going to use them to fight off reinforcements and also charge at units once they got out of the wooded area here. I was trying to avoid charging into here when I could. This might be one going off because they were just at the edge, but you can see they're pretty devastating when they hit these squads. I'm charging some miners here. I've got more Ice Guard with swords charging in this way. They took a lot of damage on the charge, but they have decent leadership when they're not too debuffed. I want to say they by standard have 75. Okay, so that's pretty decent. Still, just a huge blob fight over here. And at this point, I was looking at the victory points, and I was just thinking, okay, although I'm losing the value trade, and you can see he has points saved up, supplies saved up to bring in more reinforcements, I was thinking I just need to keep bringing my armored Kossars onto this point, my Zarguard when I have them available, and if I lose any of my heroes or my Lord, just keep them on this point and have those good melee troops holding this area, and then put my more range focused troops and my war sleds to work over here and just kind of shoot them off this point. You can see I bring my war sleds back and get them into a distance that they can charge from once someone comes out of this wooded area or back from here. I believe I eventually leave these guys be and let them run off and then chase these miners down. The Ice Guard with swords, you can see, are still holding them up back here in the woods, and that's just good, having them slow anybody down. They're going to lose this, but you know they have pretty good leadership and good anti-infantry, so they're just slowing the enemy down. Streltsy getting supporting fire in there. Still behind on gold value, but not by a lot. He does have more troops on the field, but not a huge deal. I had some Streltsy shooting flanking shots over here, but the battle line has been pushed forward away from the point over to this entrance. And so what I figured was I would send the Streltsy around this side because their reinforcements are going to come from this middle area, and I could get shots off on their supporting troops. Now he notices that at some point and then comes after me, and I think he might have forgot about all these troops that he had back here. And even with that, I'm still behind on the value trading. So more reinforcements coming in over here. Group of Streltsy, group of armored Kossars with great weapons. And at this point, I knew that these Streltsy were going to get smashed. They had the Ekron miners with blasting charges, and I don't know if it was worth me trying to charge in and slow them down. I was a little bit nervous that they were going to have a lot coming out of the woods because I saw what my Ice Guard were fighting back there. And so I brought my war sleds over here and these reinforcements, and I was just trying to get shots down the wood line with these guys slow them down with the rest of these armored Corsairs, and then see what they do and try to react with the war sleds. You can see I pulled my Ice Witch back out of this melee. I saw that he had Giant Slayers in here, and she and the Patriarchs were getting chewed up, and so I pulled her out. I'm pretty sure I had the Patriarchs issue an attack command on some other unit, and I was trying to get them out of there, but we'll see what happens with that. My Classified Dervishes that I had chasing units off in the background ended up getting caught out. I wasn't paying too much attention when I was microing them back there. They were probably one of the least prioritized units for me during this match. My Streltsy over here got caught out by miners, and Ulthar's Raiders. There, that kind of confused me. Ulthar's Raiders, that is a ranger unit, and so that's what's going on right now. I brought some more Classified Dervishes around the back. I figured I could get flanking charges with them if the battle line stayed around here. Brought my Ice Witch back because I figured she had basically served her purpose for the match, and I just needed to hold ground here. And I wanted to avoid her dying and then me dealing with a big leadership debuff. War Sled still getting charges off, holding ground. Got one squad up on top of the slope so they can get shots off. Another one chasing off some, well, I guess they're already gone, but I had them chasing off some units at some point over here. Getting another charge off on these rangers with great weapons. Some of my Streltsy are running, but I still got a group of armored Cossars in here. I saw this group of miners with blasting charges coming out, and I ran away with my Streltsy. And this is one of those things where you start to recognize things that you were missing out on during the match. These guys don't have any ammunition left. And so I could have just shot at them with my Streltsy and not ran back like that. But what I was thinking was I can shoot and run with these guys and then get them back to the point that one of the squads of war sleds could help them. So although I probably could have taken them in melee over in this area, it probably was a good thing that I backed up, shot, and kept moving. You can see doing a little more scoot and shoot here. And really the good thing for me is that I've been able to hold both battle lines mostly outside of the victory points. Getting pretty close to winning on victory points, but falling behind in the value trading. And you can see he's got 18 units on the field, and I've only got 11. I pulled these Classified Dervishes back after they got a charge off over here. Bringing some Ice Guard just to get some shots off. Occasionally when I have small squads of troops running, what I'll do is if I see, what is that? There's like a symbol that comes up. It's like a sleeping symbol to notify you on a unit card that a unit is not doing anything. After a unit has been fleeing, that's oftentimes when you'll see that happen. They'll get their leadership back, and then they'll have no orders issued. And I'm noticing with Kislev, you'll have a lot of opportunities to grab just small squads of units and give them some commands just to get some ranged attacks off. Usually if you try to charge them back in, their leadership's going to end up breaking anyways because they're charging into units that outnumber them, and they're already low on model count and whatever. So he's got his gyrocopter with the brimstones back here. Luckily they're fighting in the wooded area. I believe my Ice Witch goes down here, which is not good for me because of the leadership loss. He and me have also been fighting over these 2 points pretty heavily, and he's almost got both of them. Looks like this one I'm fighting back for. I think if the green arrow is going up, that means that it's being taken back by the person who already has it. But I lost this one. I think I actually missed it there. I think I either hit the point count or he realized that he wasn't going to be able to take this one from me in time. So I ended up getting the win there, but well played to my opponent. That was definitely one of the closer matches that I've played as far as like the balance between victory points and value trading. And let's take a quick look and see what the damage values looked like. So Ice Witch did decent considering I only brought her with one spell and I cut off a lot of her other stuff. Patriarchs didn't really do as well as I thought they would have. This guy definitely got more damage dealt, but didn't do as good as I thought. Zargar did decent. Streltsy didn't even really earn their money's worth. Armored Cossars with great weapons did alright. Classified Dervishes did pretty poorly. The War Sleds The war sleds did really good considering they barely lost any health. That is an important factor here. Ice guards didn't do great. These Streltsy did alright. These ones did not do much. These probably got brought in later. These armor costers did alright, and these dervishes didn't do great. So honestly, value trading wise, nothing that I brought did so well, other than the war sleds, I would say, and these Zargard. I think these guys cost 1,100. My opponent, Thorek, definitely didn't earn his value. I'm not sure how much Iron Breakers are, so I can't tell if these guys got their money's worth. Hammers did work. These ones not as much, but these guys 2,000 value. It's pretty good. Although again, I'm not sure how much they cost. I would guess hammers probably cost around like 1,300, something like that. Just based off of the performance I see. Giant Slayers, my lord, these guys were probably just chewing up my Patriarch and my Ice Queen, and that would most likely be where they got a lot of their value from. Organ guns, nothing really. Gyrocopter, nothing really. Ulthar's Raiders did a lot of work, even more than the Giant Slayers. Rangers with great weapons all did decent. Ekron Miners, Miners with blasting charges were alright, and most of their miners didn't do too much. So there's not too much telling for me there as far as figuring out the matchup. That's the first time that I played against Dwarves. I think if you know the game pretty well, I do think my opponent had some missed opportunities where he had troops. He had so many troops on the field, and he had positions where he could have outnumbered me, but he had units that were idle, focusing on different points, especially point 3 during that. So I think that was definitely a match that he could have won if he had all of his units active, but luckily I was able to keep him off the points and pull that one away. So again, good game to my opponent, and thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next replay.